The Focus First graphs are powerful tools to really show your customers what's going on in the market and really demystify a puzzle that many people just get bewildered by. Now, in order to do that, in order to present them in a great way, we're going to watch one of the masters, my father, Tim DeLeon, who actually created this program, present a CMA to you. So let's sit back, watch, and learn.
Hi, I'm Tim DeLeon from Focus First, and today I'm going to walk you through how to present a market analysis using the graphs from the visual pricing system. Now, this is an actual CMA that we recently completed for Dave, a customer of Joanne's, and the property that she recently listed. Before I get started, I want to point out three key things to you. First of all, just about everything that you see are going to be based on the graphs that you get from the visual pricing system. But you'll notice at the beginning that we'll show you information about the subject property. Now, that information is gathered from the local MLS, public records, and Google Maps. We've also included some divider pages, and I think those are going to be pretty obvious, and we just created those from PowerPoint. Lastly, while I present this information to Dave, when I did that, we're going to be missing a lot of the discussion I had with Dave. And this is important because, as you'll see, what we like to do is ask questions, show the data, describe the data, and then have a discussion with Dave and let Dave come up with the questions and answers to some of the questions. And so in that regard, Dave actually helps create the presentation with me. And this is a really powerful presentation technique, and it helps really create a trusted advisor aspect rather than an adversarial relationship that you get with a lot of CMAs. So let's take a look at this and let's go through this. Hi Dave, now this is the market analysis we're doing for your property at 1002 West 5th Street in Loveland, Colorado. Now this is just a title page on the market analysis, and we're going to walk you through this right now. And one of the things I want to bring to your attention right off the bat is this is the date, March 17th, 2020. And this market analysis that we're doing for you is really valid for only the next 3 months. The market is pretty dynamic and things change quite a bit. And so if you decide to list your property, 6 months later or a year later, we need to update this. And basically, this information is only valid for the next 3 months. So anytime further out than that, we need to come back and update this information and make sure it's still valid. So with that being the case, let's take a look at your market analysis. Now, this first page right here talks about what I call the agenda or the table of contents. And this is the process we're going to do in looking at your overall market analysis. In the first section, we're going to look at information about your property. And this is information that's basically available through public sites, Google Maps, on the web. This is about information that pretty much everybody has access to through the web. The section, we're going to look at information about your neighborhood and area. So we're going to look at what's going on in real estate in your neck of the woods. In the third section, we're going to look at information on properties that's sold in your area. And those are going to be really comparables, and they're going to be a good idea of what the market value of your property is. And this is kind of what a lot of appraisers will do as well. And in the fourth section, we're going to look at your property from a buyer perspective. What we like to say is we're going to look at it from buyer's eyes. So we're going to look at your property and compare it to the competition and look to see what else is for sale. So that's kind of the agenda, and let's go ahead and walk through this. Okay. In this first section, we're going to look at information about your home. And this is information that pretty much is available in public records and internet sites and things like that. So pretty much everybody has access to this information. So just be aware of that. In this first page, we look at, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. This is just information from Google Maps. Gives you an idea of where your property sits in the overall location, what the overall picture looks like. And you can see here's where your property is in the big red dot, just north of the big Thompson River. You can see what that looks like. And so that looks great. There's nothing really significant to bring here. I think you have a great location, a little bit of a ditch right here. It looks like a little bit of a river, but I think it's mostly a ditch. There's the big Thompson River right here. This is a great place to see if you back to a busy street or if you're backing to a green belt or something. In most cases, you're not. There's a couple of homes on either side of you, but you do have good views of this overall area here, which is kind of nice. So a little bit nicer location than a lot of the other people in some of the busy area. But the other thing about this is you're very close to the Old Town in Loveland, which is one of the key aspects of this area. This next picture is kind of the same picture. It's meant to be a little bit more zoomed in. It's a little bit out of focus. Google just doesn't have a good focus for this area, but usually they do. But that's just so you can be aware of it. So this kind of gives a good idea of a little bit closer in picture of the overall location and where you're at. Nothing significant to report here. The next thing we like to look at is what we call public records. This is available, again, people can see this pretty much on the web. They can be at their home and take a look at this. I can see it talks a little bit about your home, the size, kind of the key characteristics about your property when it was built. You can see we also have the assessed value, which people will have. Now, in most cases, that's not a big deal because most people are aware that basically there's not really a key correlation necessarily between the assessed value and the market value. So we'll look at market value in a second. So, but just want to make sure you're aware that this is what people will be looking at. Other information on public records, you can see it just shows the lot and where you're at basically in location, which we've already looked at already. The next thing we have is what we call a floor plan, and this is the really important thing. We actually had your floor plan measured so that we could have the most accurate measurement of the size of your property. Now, a lot of times we'll look at previous MLS sheets, but in this case, there was no previous MLS sheet. So we just had it measured because when we look at real estate, you're going to find that the size of your property is important. And you can see one of the things here, let me just point out that your property is at 2811 square feet. And then, of course, with about 2,000 square feet up, about almost 3,000, 2811 total in your property. And then other information we had from the information. Okay. Now the next step we're going to do is take a look at what we call information about the local market or the local area. And this really is important because it gives us a chance to take a look at what we call the customer profile. And so you can see right here what we did is we looked at all the activity kind of within the 1 mile block. It's a little bit longer than a mile, but you can see what we looked at, what we call natural boundaries. So this is a major street kind of going north and south here, as well as right around here. And right in that blue dot is where your property is located. So we looked at all the property right in this little rectangular area, almost a 1 mile square. So all the activity you're going to see down below is based on all the real estate activity in this area. Now, before we look at that, let me just show you this, what we call the appreciation for the. Now, this is all of Fort Collins and Loveland, and this is based on data from a government site, fhfa.gov, and this shows the average, the annual appreciation in the Fort Collins Loveland area. So this is like a large metropolitan area. We just want to give you an idea of what that looks like. And you can see that the important thing is, if you look at the last few years that you've owned your house, there's been lots of great appreciation. So that we should be able to see that reflected in the market analysis. But we'll take a look at that in a second. So this is just the average appreciation for the overall metropolitan area. And so with that being the case, let's take a look at that specific 1 mile radius, or not 1 mile radius, but 1 mile rectangular square type of figure right now. Now, of course, my goal as your realtor is to get you where you want to go on time. As you know, in today's environment, not everything that's listed is selling. Would you like to see the odds of your home selling? Of course, yeah. Well, let's take a look at that. Great. This is a picture of what we call the odds of selling. And basically what it is it's a summary of all the real estate activity in your area over the last 2 years. On this bottom graph, we can take a look at all the activity in 2018. In the middle graph is all the activity in 2019. And this is the last 12 months. Now, we did this data March 17, so this is like about 3 months of 2020 and then 9 months of 2019. Now, in blue, we show all the properties that sold. In green, we show all the properties that are for sale. And in red, we show all the properties that did not sell. Now, usually we like to say those are properties that didn't sell for the value they had and where they were priced at. Now, if you look at everything that's listed and look at the percentage of homes that sold, Usually what we like to say is we like to call that the odds of selling. Now, in 2018, that was about 80%. 2019, that dropped to about 67%. And if you look at the current, we're currently selling about 75% of the homes listed are selling. Now, usually what we like to look at is if it's 30% or lower, it's going to be a tough sell. If you get to be about 60% or higher, then this is a solid sell. Now, we're about 70%, 75%. Once you get to be about 70 or 80%, things are starting to sell pretty hot. So based on that, we're saying this is kind of a hot time, hot market to sell, hot area to sell. But even in the place that we're labeling as hot, you can see we still had 17 properties that did not sell. So even though it's kind of a hot area, basically, we still got to make sure that you're priced right, and we got to make sure that you're showing great. So this is what we call the odds of selling, your home. Now, if we look at 2019, there were 55 homes that did sell, and of course 15 did not sell. But if your house does sell, would you like to see how long it should take before you close? Of course, everybody wants to see how long it takes before they sell their house. Well, let me show you what we did. We took all the homes that sold in 2019, and we put them on this little scattergram chart. Now, what we have on this side right here is all the prices of the homes sold, so you can see what they sold for. And then over here on the x-axis, we show the number of days they were on the market before they closed. Now you can see the average is about 59 days, so that's about 2 months, which says that most of the people in your area that did sell, they closed in 2 months or less. Now, you can see there's a big glob if you look at this pattern right around, looks like maybe about 4 or 5 weeks out. Now, if you look at that, that says a lot of these people actually went under contract probably with them being on the market the first 2 weeks. So what that says to us for your location is we shouldn't be surprised. Matter of fact, we should expect if your property shows great and is priced right, that we would get an offer within the first 2 weeks of being on the market. Now, let me just make sure you understand this graph. If you look at this right here, this average, most of the activity occurred on or before this average, which is the 2 months time frame. And so this is where you get your best offers. This is where you get most of your real estate activity. Now, if you don't close within the first 2 weeks, which would mean that you'd have to be under contract within the first 2 to 4 weeks of being on the market, does that mean you're not going to sell? Well, no. We still got some people that sold way out here, but this should be where you want to go. This should be what your target is. And then, of course, if we don't happen, then we can figure out what's going on based on feedback and other information. So this is what we call the time to sell. So we looked at the odds, which are really good. We looked at the time to sell so we can know what your experience should be. Would you like to see when the best time to get your house on the market might look like? And of course, everybody wants to see when the best time to get their house on the market. And this is what we can look at based on that. What this is right here is this is a graph we like to call the buying pattern. So this shows the number of homes that sold and when they actually closed and the time of the year that they actually closed. And you can see there's lots of activity throughout the whole year. Most of the activity occurred between May and August, but there's still lots of activity early on. So if you look at this graph, what we're saying here, basically, we're sitting in March right now. We're looking at the key time to get your house listed. So we think this is going to be a great opportunity to get your property sold. Just getting on the market as soon as we can right now. Basically, this is going to be a great time. Now, we have a little bit of time if you need to get some things fixed up or get some things cleaned up. We can certainly take time to do that. So just want to make sure you're aware of that as well. But this is a great time to get your house on the market. So everything is looking pretty good at this point. Okay, now let's take a look at all the activity in your area and take a look at what properties actually sold. Now, before I do this, let me ask you a question. Are you willing to list your property at fair market value? Now, most cases when I hear that, or at least when I ask people that question, they'll usually say, well, what is fair market value? Or they'll say yes. But a lot of times they want to know, well, what is fair market value? So let me show you what that is. Now, the first thing I want to do is, this is a map I just took a picture of from the MLS to show you all the properties that sold in your area in the last 6 months. So you can see what they look like and where they're at. Okay, and then we also have a single page, and make this a little bit bigger for you to see. This is just what we call a one-line description of all the properties that sold in your area in the last 6 months. Now, it's kind of hard to take a look at this and kind of figure out what's up and what's down and what's going on here. So what we like to do is we like to put that on a scattergram to show you the fair market value. And that's what this is right here. This is the scattergram right here of all the properties that sold in that area. Now, what you're going to find is a couple things. Let me just point out to you. One is, if you look at all these dots right here, you can see there is a strong correlation between what we call price and size, which means that for the most part, most of these properties are pretty comparable, which means they're all built about the same year. They all have about the same kind of features. Everything's been pretty comparable. And so for the most part, they all fit right alongside. There's a strong correlation between price and size. They're all fit right alongside this trend line. Now, there's a couple of exceptions. Let me talk a little bit about that. But this is what we like to call is our pricing scattergram. Now, we love these scattergrams to price properties because when we price properties, we like to look at 5 factors. The most important factor is location, and for the most part, these all are pretty comparable location-wise. They're all in that 1 mile rectangular square type of thing that we talked about, so they're all location-wise, they're all pretty close. The next thing we like to look at is price and size, and you can see on this graph, we can show the price and the size very easy. And of course, as we mentioned, there's a strong correlation between price and size. The last thing we like to look at is special features and condition. And special features and condition are the things that make these special features are the things that make these things move, these dots move way above the line. And condition are what makes some of these dots move way below the line. Now, most of these properties are built in the 1950s and early 1900s, basically. You can see here's one that's 1918. So you get a huge variety of kind of potential where in some cases homes have been totally updated, in some cases they haven't been. Now, most of these homes, it turns out, are pretty comparable in the kind of features they have, with the exception of this property right up here, which turns out was been recently totally remodeled. Basically, it looks just awesome. We up here, and of course, we got a property way down here that looks basically way below the trend line, and that property needs some TLCs and really needs some serious TLC and some work. So this is a great picture right off the bat. So based on this, let me just ask you, do you know the size of your property? Of course, we did a measurement of your property, as you're aware, and we measured it with 2,800 square feet, 2,811 to be exact. And so if we drew a line up right around 2,800, which is right over here, and we drew a line straight up from here, would you agree that your property would sell somewhere on this line? And of course, the answer is yes, because that's the size of your property. Now, if you look to see where you hit the fair market value line, it's right around 470 type of thing. Basically, this is 450. It's maybe about 470. Okay, right on that 470, 475. It looks like right around that kind of line is where you're at. So now we looked at these properties right here. Basically, you can see what some of these have. This has some of the key things we can actually look at here, basically. And we'll spend more time looking at these for you. Now, based on looking at these features that we've kind of summarized up here, basically, and we can look at some of these right off the bat, what do you think your house would sell for? I can tell you right now, in looking at these features, your house is pretty comparable to all these based on the set of features that you have and the features that they have. They all have like lots of great wood flooring, and a lot of them don't have kitchens that have been upgraded, which is also the case of your property as well. Okay, so based on my perception, you should be probably pretty close to this trend line, maybe a little bit higher. Because of your location being close to the river, I think you've got a little bit nicer location than some of these properties do. So based on that, I think you're probably, if you look at 2,800 maybe a little bit above, probably halfway in between here, maybe like right around this dot right here, which is where you should be basically. And we kind of came to that conclusion after a discussion with Dave that maybe he should be right at, he was thinking right around this, about this second dot, which is just slightly above there, which is at 490. And we said, well, let's go ahead and put you at 500 is what we said, because that's right at the bridge, we call the bridge. So that's kind of what we ended up talking about when we talked about with Dave. Well, great, Dave, we're looking at right around 500. Let me take a look at what the positioning data looks like, or let's look at you from a buyer perspective. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so in the next section, we're going to look at your home, and we're going to adjust maybe a little bit up or down, basically, we call positioning the home based on the competition. So again, we took a look at, looking at your area. This is, again, the same area that we're looking at, that 1 mile rectangular square type of thing. And we looked at all the properties that are currently for sale, and there's a lot of properties for sale here, basically. And so here's all the properties that are currently for sale, map of the area. And then we can also look at, again, the one-line description. And this is the one-line description. Now, when we look at this one-line description of all the properties that currently are for sale, Dave, you're going to notice a couple of things. One is, right off the bat, almost everything that's listed is selling. This is a great picture to look at, basically. So we got a lot of properties in that area that are under contract. Now, the next thing we like to look at is what we call the projected pond. And let's take a look at that, basically. Now, projected pond is a great projection. And this is a pond. The pond makes an analogy between water flowing in and out of a pond and homes coming on and off the market. Now, you can see right here, the homes are coming on the market. The best homes will come along the market. They'll float along the top over here. And as you saw from the previous graph, they'll go under contract in a very timely fashion. We saw somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. And then once they go under contract, they'll just go right on through and they'll end up closing. As we saw, again, from a previous data point, most of the homes that go under contract and close, they'll close within 59 days, 2 months, or in that kind of time frame, basically. Homes that don't show so great or maybe aren't priced right, they'll float along the top over here, and then if we're not careful, they'll start to get waterlogged, and they'll sink to the bottom, and they'll come down here, they'll float down to the bottom, sink to the bottom, I should say. They'll become part of the stagnant mass, okay, and they'll end up becoming a withdrawn property. And we saw that even in this market where a lot of properties are selling, we do have properties that are basically taken off the market because they couldn't sell for the value they had and where they were priced at. Now, this is a great little analogy, and this is a great picture, and this is a projection based on the current rate of sales. It's also filtered with the buying pattern, and you can see we're projecting 27 properties to sell in the next 3 months. There's already 14 under contract, so that leaves 13 new sales. Now, there's currently 7 properties on the market right now, 7, okay? And there's a projected 17 more properties to come on the market in the next 3 months. So, Dave, this is a great opportunity for you to get on the market as soon as possible. And once we get you on the market as soon as possible, you can see there's a huge supply and demand in your favor. And we think with this kind of situation, we can get you a pretty good offer right off the bat. Now, we did take a look at all of these properties currently on the market so we can get a picture, get an idea of what this actually looks like. So let me just kind of show you what this looks like just so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so what we did is we took all these homes currently for sale and we put them on a scattergram so you can again see how you compare to other homes that sold. Now again, this is the scattergram right here we're looking at, and you're at 2,800 square feet right over here. And I think we're talking about listing you right at 500. Probably, we said realistically 490 is probably where you should be, but we said let's go ahead and list you at 500. Now, mostly because we like it, because it's pricing you on the bridge, which of course that makes a lot of sense if you look at all the search engines and so forth on the internet. Pricing you right at 500 probably makes the most sense. Now, if we price you right there and based on your size, you're going to be right there. If you look at that, there's actually no activity. I mean, there's a property right at 498, basically, that's a little bit larger than you, but it's already under contract. But if you look at up here, basically, there's almost nobody up here in your size and in your price, which makes for, I think, a really beneficial place to be. Basically, there's like a sweet spot. Now we do have this house right here, basically this property on Garfield. That's a ranch property. Now it's got a little bit less square footage than you have, and you can see it's a ranch, so there's a lot of the square footage is in the basement as well. So I think we still feel comfortable with you being up there, since you can see here it's got about 1,100 square feet in the basement. So a lot of your space is above ground, basically, compared to this property. So I still think that's pretty close and feel pretty comfortable with you right there. Now, we also took a picture of, I also decided to put the homes there for sale under contract, at least right on your street. This is 5th Street where you're at. And this is a scattergram, so you can see where that is. Now, this is a property right here that's under contract, right at $500,000. You can see he's right on the scattergram. And this is another property, basically, that's under contract down the street from you. Basically, they've got a lot of upgrades as well. So they're priced right up here with this guy. So that makes sense. So you can kind of get a chance to see where you're at. So anyway, based on this, I still feel comfortable with you with listing at 500 because of being on the bridge. Although, like you said, we're probably more likely to sell probably around 490 when it's over and done with. So anyway, I think I feel good about that. So any last questions, or if you feel good about that, let's go ahead and talk about how we can get you on the market and what time frame looks the best for you.